Next, we've got a couple of other CSS3 properties that are new and will let us make animations in our web page. The first one is called a transition. Now, I've got a file set up for us to work on that, so let's go back and close our original file here, and then open up the second file. Try CSS3 Transitions. I'll just drag it onto my browser, and I'll open it up inside TextEdit as well. For this file, I've set up a div with some sample text in it to look a little bit like a button. Now, we've probably all set up hover properties for buttons, and you can see that I've got some basic settings for my button, and I've also got some hover properties for my button up here at the top. Some of them are commented out, but the current one is a background color of red. So of course, if I hover over this button, it should change from its normal background color of white to red momentarily. And if I roll off of it, it'll go back to white again. Let's try it out. If I just roll over the button, you can see the red background pops up there. And if I roll off of it, we revert back to our earlier style with the white background. The new CSS3 transition property works whenever you're changing an element from one style to another, which is exactly what we're doing with a hover button. We're switching the element from the original style over to any changes in the hover style. Now, what Transitions does for us is it allows us to animate that change instead of just flipping from one state to another. Let's try it out here. All I need to do is go to the basic button, trans here. You can see that class is applied to our div in this example. And I'll just go in and add the transition property. I only have two required parameters for the transition property. I need to specify what other property we're transitioning and how long the transition should take. So for this one, I'm going to be doing the background color property. I'll set that up as my first parameter. And the second thing was how long. I'm going to make this nice and slow, so I'm going to set it up for 4 seconds. I'll just type in 4, and I'll use S for seconds. I'll close up that property with a semicolon. And before we go try it out, we're going to need to add one more thing, because this transition property is just like our transform property in that we're going to need prefixes in order for it to work on most of our browsers. So in order to see this in my test browser of Firefox, I'm going to need to add the MOZ prefix like we did before. I'll need the same settings, so I'll just copy this one and paste it on back in and simply add my prefix dash MOZ dash at the beginning. Now, I won't type the other ones in for now, but they're exactly the same as what we saw for our transform. I'd use MS for Microsoft Internet Explorer version 9. I'd use WebKit for Safari and Chrome. And I'd add O for Opera. But now that we've got that in there, we can save our change, and let's go see what it looks like. I'll refresh the page, and this time, when I roll over the button, you can see that I get a nice gradual fade to red instead of the snap to red that we saw before. When I roll off the button, you can see that I get a gradual fade back. So now we're animating that change with our CSS. Now that we've seen how a basic transition works, let's go back and make a few changes. Remember, I had some commented out style rules up here in the top for my hover style. As you probably know, you can use multiple different styles for hover, and when you roll over the object, it should change all the different styles for you. So for instance, if I uncomment the width style here, that should make it active. I'll put it right up with the background color. Save that change, and let's go try our rollover again. This time, when I roll over the object, you can see that the width instantly changes, but the color changes gradually. I'll roll back off of it, and you can see the same thing. The width changes very fast, and it takes the full 4 seconds for the color to change. Well, that's simply because we specified we wanted the background color to be animated, not the width. There's actually an easy way to get all the properties to be animated, and that is, instead of specifying a single property down in here, simply type in the word all. Now, whatever properties change, in this case both the background color and the width, will be animated for our full 4 seconds. Of course, we'll need to make that same change to our transition statement with the MOZ pre-filter on it, so I'll change background color once again to all. Now let's save our changes, and let's see how our button works now. I'll refresh the page, and this time when I roll over the button, you can see that it gradually changes the width and the color. and they both animate at the same time, both for roll-on and for roll-off. Now there's a couple of other properties we can use, and since we've got the width and background here, I think we can see them both. The first value that we can add to our transition property is a transition timing function, and that value describes how the element will change from one style to the other. Now the default for this is linear, which means a simple change from A to B. But we can add in a different style. For instance, we can add in easing. That allows you to have a very natural speed up and slow down of the animation as it moves. Now I just add this value right after the duration. I'm going to put in ease. And remember, we have to do it for both of our settings, or more if you have all of your different browser prefixes defined. Now we'll save this change. And this time when we animate it, it'll be hard to see the easing and the color change, but look specifically at the width change of the button as we roll over it. I'll refresh the page, we'll roll over it, and you can see it starts out really slow and ends very slow. Now it's probably more pronounced if we do this a little faster. So let me just change the duration down to 2 seconds for both of my style rules. We'll save that change, and let's try our rollover again. The rollover and roll off are much faster now, and you can see that they start slow and end slow, but have a nice constant speed in the middle. Now the last value you can add to a transition property is a delay. You can go right down here to the end of the statement and specify a number of seconds you should wait before the animation plays back. Now this wouldn't be too good for a normal rollover button, but we can try it out here just to see how it works. I'll put in a 2-second delay. We'll do it on both of our style rules, and I'll even change the duration of the animation down to 1 second to show how fast we can run it. I'll save those changes, and let's try our rollover again. Now this time when I roll over, we're going to have a pause, 1, 2, and then the animation plays. The same thing will happen when I roll off of it. We'll start now, 1, 2, and the animation plays. Now you can see why a delay wouldn't be so good for a button, so we'll take that back off. I'll just remove that, and we'll not specify any delay at all, and the default is 0. Now I had 2 other styles up here just to show that it works on text as well. So let me uncomment those. And you can see that we're going to change from a normal font size up to a size 26 font. And we're also going to be adding a font weight of bold to it. And since we specified all properties, it'll animate all of those as well. Let's save our change, and we'll try it one last time. I'll refresh and roll over our button. And there we can see the text and the text weight changing as it moves from one state to another.